Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Drinking Movement podcast. Hello, if you are not new here, then you know what this vibe is all about. And if you are new here, this is your first time listening in, welcome, and I'm super happy you're here. My name is Jess Betancourt, and I'm a retired wino, and I currently work or have been working for the past 5-ish years as a hypnotherapist and a holistic health coach. And I help people who struggle with drinking habits, especially in the area of what's classified as like a gray area drinker or someone that doesn't really visibly have problems, someone who doesn't really self identify as a problematic alcoholic. This is more the crowd that I'm addressing because this is who I was, somebody who drank a lot and all the time, but really just viewed that as normal because that was the environment that I was in. That's the environment that most of us are in. So when you're a fish in the sea, it's hard to know that you're in the sea because that's what you see. That's just your environment. So it can just go by the wayside for a long time. Like for me, I felt awful a lot, but I just as quick as I could tried to snap back from it and move on, but then I would just do the same thing over and over again. And it's not like alcohol was ruling my life in a way that it was, not in a way that it was like I wasn't going to go to jail or like die from alcohol poisoning. That really wasn't my behavior, although so sad that that truly, of course, does happen. But my realm of how I was engaging with alcohol was just that it was just so pervasive. Not that it was ruining my life, but it was directing my life and overtly confining me to a certain set of parameters of existence. So, like said differently, like I was on a habitual hamster wheel with how I was drinking. I was looking forward to drinking. My plans were designed around drinking. And the way that I felt was like at a default level. Like I could only feel so good because I was constantly introducing alcohol into my body. So that's, if you're new here, that soundbite was for you. If you resonate with that, then you're definitely in the right place. Furthermore, I still, knowing all that I know about alcohol and the harms of it now, that's also becoming much more of a into the public domain and more public knowledge. And I do identify it as a neurotoxin. And however, I still do engage with it. And however, it's from a completely different mindset and from a place of self awareness that I choose to engage and that I can actively disengage. But I did not have this ability for a long fucking time. So if you would like that ability, or if you are someone who is like, you want to change your drinking, being classified or self identifying as a sober person just like doesn't sit with you yet or now, then you're in, this is the place for you. This is the community for you. I also don't fit into those other communities because I don't draw a hard line in the sand. My concern is more with the way that I'm thinking and feeling and relating to alcohol rather than alcohol itself. And I know that that's like that's a luxury to be able to say that because I definitely know people who are better off completely removing themselves from alcohol in its totality as a life-saving decision. So I'm not poo-pooing that. I am just saying who I am speaking to is a bit more of a niche crowd. It's a bit more of a nuanced community that I foster. Hi. If you're still here, this episode is totally for you. And it's more so for you if you are still on the fringes of exploring, changing your relationship to alcohol, changing the way that you behave and the way that you consume and the way that you think about drinking in a world that is so saturated with it. This is for you. If you are in the beginning steps or stages of wanting change, but haven't made that leap or jump or commitment or even that first step of, I say the first step. I did not take this from AA, but when I looked back retrospectively at the process that I've gone through and am still on, the very first step was this admittance. I won't repeat the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous because I don't know it verbatim, but it is along the lines of admittance, self-admittance, admitting to oneself that there is a problem to be addressed. I also went through that. It was like that was the first threshold that I went through, was like, and it felt weird, and it felt kind of like yucky. It felt like I was admitting that something was wrong with me when I was in that place, but it also simultaneously felt like a relief. It felt like I was shedding shame that I'd been hiding and protecting this thing that I was enjoying with Cody fingers, but also simultaneously hiding and felt like was off and needed some transformation, some transmutation, some revising and rewriting. So in those very, very beginning stages, it was like the admitting that something needed to change. So if you're in that place and you're kind of saying it to yourself, it helps to say it out loud. And if you don't have a trusted ear for it to land on, just say it out loud and just notice what that does to you emotionally. Like even now as I'm speaking of it, of like when I said it to a colleague of mine. I didn't even know that I was going to say it, but I said, I think I drink too much and I think it's really holding me back and it's something that I'm ready to change. And I was like, oh my God, did I just say that? But it felt like this whole mixed bundle of emotion that was refreshing and sensitive and not necessarily painful, but like touching these deeper places in me that needed to move. They were like, oh, I had them on lockdown so hard and nothing was going to change like that. So I had to give it some space and some light and some flexibility. And the way that we do that, or the way that it has been proven to be powerful and effective and profound, is to speak to it, to speak it and to name it and to remove the shroud of shame that is keeping it from changing. That's the preliminary step. But if you are around, tinkering around or hanging around the edges of this conversation, this kind of movement and this type of work, this episode, as I said, is for you. So let's go back to the beginning a little bit. This episode is about the hidden fear of changing your relationship to alcohol. And so I'm going to name it for us now, and that is being visible. And what inspired me to make this podcast is I listen to podcasts while I fold laundry, whereas I used to drink half a bottle of wine when I'd fold laundry. Now I fold laundry in the morning and I listen to podcasts. And I was listening to this great podcast that I just found. Sorry that I can't cite it for you right now. I didn't put it in my notes. Maybe I'll put it in my own show notes. It was a podcast on Tantra and a tantric lifestyle. And the host had a guest, and they were both talking about, they went through kind of like a mirrored experience. They were friends and they were both in relationships that weren't really feeding their souls. Like they had their good qualities, but like it wasn't the totality of what they wanted. It wasn't the whole enchilada, but they were staying because it was comfortable and it was familiar and there was love there and there was safety, but there wasn't like it wasn't like the soul ride that they both knew that they wanted. And they had both also met other another who was in a relationship or who was otherwise committed. I forget the exact details, but like they lusted and longed for this other one when they were both inside of emotionally safe relationships, but that didn't have like the fire. And what the conversation ended up being was that they were so afraid of being witnessed, of being super fully expressed in this like full-fledged version of themselves. They were hiding out and they were playing safe. And when they were talking about this, because I talk about being in relationship with alcohol and make that metaphor so people can um, easier see the mechanics of like and the function of what is really going on when you're in a lifestyle or habitual course of using alcohol ritualistically to solve your problems habitually. If like alcohol is a huge part of your lifestyle, you are in a relationship with alcohol. And so I drew this parallel of thinking, wow, I was in this relationship with alcohol that ended up being dysfunctional. Um, not exactly toxic, but like abusive, and the abuser was me. I was abusing alcohol to try to get my needs met, and it was definitely like like a dependency. I was dependent on it. And what I realized when I was just like thinking about this podcast episode and then filtering it through my own experience and how I try to draw parallels and metaphors so we can better understand things, I was like, oh my God, I was afraid of being seen. I was afraid of being witnessed and I was afraid of being visible. And then I kind of triggered this thought of like, oh, people say, I don't know what studies exactly back this up, but people say that a human being's greatest fear, I don't think this is true for everyone in the world, but like in the Western world, one of the greatest fears is fear of public speaking. And when I think about that, I'm like, well, what is really underlying that fear? It can't really be public speaking itself, right? I don't think everyone lays awake at night thinking about public speaking, but I do think the underlying, the greater fear there that public speaking is an example of is being seen. It's being visible. It's being witnessed in your vulnerability and your essence. And like when all of these layers of the ego are pulled back and like the layers of our personality that we put there, all of our defense mechanisms, like for me, my alcohol use was totally this like defensiveness that I built around me. It kept me safe, it kept me protected, it offered me a lot of things that I maybe at one time really, really needed. Like I needed to feel safe. I needed to be able to check out, remove myself from intense situations. I needed to quiet my mind and quiet my brain and not have these incessant thoughts that were driving me nuts. Alcohol really solved a lot of those problems at the time. And maybe that's true for you too. Or maybe you're realizing parts of this or seeing parts of this in yourself, which is my intention in making this episode, is so that I can make my experience visible so that perhaps you can witness some of yourself in what I'm saying and what I'm laying out in this scenario that I'm describing for you. But here's why this is really important, because this is a safety feature. Being invisible is a life-saving thing. Whereas it used to be maybe like the parts of our brain that remember being more primitive, like the evolution of our brain, um, we had to hide. We had to hide from predators. We had to hide from invaders. We had to hide. Like hiding and being invisible is a form of safety. That being said, what does it then mean though? What does it mean to be visible, and why do we shy away from being visible? Because if we're visible, we risk being judged. We risk um, getting hurt. We're vulnerable. We're like emotionally naked, can be. We risk being disliked, being unloved, or canceled, whatever that means, or kicked out of the tribe. We risk not belonging if we are fully witnessed. And so that fear is real. It's real. And people find many ways to deal with this fear, right? Like just making ourselves small, having an addictive habit that like gives you permission to check out, especially the socially acceptable ones like over consuming alcohol or smoking cigarettes or vaping. Screens is a huge one. Those are like our subconscious permissive ways that we've allowed ourselves to pull back and to not be fully seen or witnessed. So it actually has a very positive intention, this alcohol habit. It's not for nothing, right? It's our mind's brilliant way of keeping us alive. Because that is what the mind's job is, to keep us alive and to keep us safe. And sometimes those things are overlapped and intertwined. So, yeah, um, along those lines of drinking helping us to be invisible, it also helps us to somewhat shape shift, or to at least be someone else, or to like put on this other persona, which is also another form of safety, right? We're like hiding, we're in disguise. But also, if you've listened to some of my other podcasts about making, when we're drinking, how we allow our energy and our auric field becomes permeable. Alcohol use has a really low density to it, so that also puts porous spots or holes in our aura or energetic field, which then allows other energies to come in, and they come into our bodies and like take our bodies for a joyride. I explained this in my Halloween episode about the spirit world, if you want to scroll down and listen to that one. But that also is like, that's an escape. That's us not being visible. That's us being someone else. So this is how this all plays in. It also allows our brain to just be quiet, right? That analytical prefrontal cortex part of our brain, alcohol use, just kind of like just be quiet. Stop talking to me. All of these thoughts that are going on inside of us, like sometimes we just need that to shut up, and alcohol does that for us. However, while alcohol is it's a short-lived solution, or is what many of us are finding out now. It's like that solution is now today's issue or problem to be solved. So those are all the pros, right? The positive intention is safety. However, there are also the cons. And the cons are that we're not really ourselves. We're not really fully, holistically ourselves when we are in habitual alcohol use. Our spirit can't really stay inside of our body. We don't feel that essence of connection to the greater source of life. We feel disconnected from our joy. We feel like we need instant dopamine hits, which is the alcohol like trains us to have this instant dopamine hit, which removes us from the simplicity of simple pleasures, of being present with other people, with children, with partners, with animals. It really diminishes the quality of our presence. Our relationships suffer for this because we're not truly present in them. When we're taking a checkout, when we're disappearing into the shroud of drinking, we are not available. We're not available to ourselves, and we're not available to other people. Another con with habitual alcohol use is that we become so intertwined with it. We develop this really well-worn groove in our neural pathways, and we feel like it becomes like a default part of our personality. So the way that you are when you drink, or the way that you feel when you drink, over time we mistake that for who we are. And so it can feel scary to start to separate from that. I've had numerous clients who speak to this of feeling afraid of letting go of alcohol or habitual alcohol use because they don't know who they will be without it. Because they're so used to thinking from an alcohol filtered mind that it feels like it's who they are. And I certainly felt that way too. I was scared. I didn't know who I would be without my daily wine, my daily red. And but here's the thing is like you don't have to have all of these answers. You don't have to have all of these answers. And um, what I really hope to give you is just a small little piece to take on or to try on. And it is to accept the invitation to step up to whatever next level of bravery you can feel into and to explore who you are when you're not hiding behind alcohol. And at first, that can look like a shit show because our emotional regulation has been really messed with from habitual alcohol use. And so it does take some time for your hormones to even out, for your nervous system to settle. There's often a lot of crying that happens when you first start to remove alcohol for, stretches of time. Even if you haven't had one day in a while, like it can be that one day on repeat. But when you start to take it away, what has been underneath starts to rise. And you can do this in a titrating fashion, meaning you can do it like a little bit at a time if it feels overwhelming. Like you don't have to try to plug the dam, with your hands and like try to manage it like that. Like it can be more of a gentle way of allowing what's been underneath the surface and what you've been hiding from to become a little bit more visible and then to become a little bit more visible. And it can happen in phases and waves. It doesn't have to be this massive, overwhelming thing all at once, which doesn't feel safe, which is why a lot of us shy away from it and don't take these first initial steps because that is scary. So you can do it subtly. Acknowledging and recognition that that is in fact what's going on, however, will really help you. The truth does set you free, and telling it to yourself, or better yet, even to another trusted person, feels simultaneously scary and exciting. Feels simultaneously kind of yucky and relieving. And this is what healing is, though. It's like messy. It's not unicorn farts and rainbows. It's like not. It's not a trip to the ice cream store, But on the other side of doing this kind of inner work, you feel so much more like yourself because you can accept and love these parts of you that have been put behind this defense layer of an alcohol habit, for example. It's just one of the amazing things that can happen, but the results are not, it's not a quick fix, right? It is a process to go through. You could even look at it as like lifestyle, a lifestyle that's happening, this different kind of lifestyle. You could look at it as a spiritual unfolding or a healing journey. That's how I choose to perceive it. So it's not perfect, it's non-linear, and it doesn't happen overnight. So when you can accept those things and then disregard them as part of any sort of expectation, you give yourself a lot of freedom and room to explore, to allow yourself to connect more deeply with who you really are, and to allow those parts of you to become more visible, which gives you a lot of relief and feeling like you need to hide. Really, truly accepting more and more of you, the parts that you've been protective of, gives you this sense of liberation, which the result then is that you don't feel compelled to have an automatic drinking behavior, set of behaviors, because you no longer have to hide. You really get to feel like you're expressed and you're who you really, really are and who you're really meant to be. All of that being said, I have a special invitation for you. I did this program last year and it was really fulfilling and it was so gorgeous and wonderful. And I'm opening it again. We will be starting on the spring equinox. It is What Do I Know 2025, and it is a group healing container. It's 6 weeks, and there is a community to support you. And also included in this year's program is a one-to-one private hypnotherapy session with me where I will help you personally uncover the root cause of your attachment to alcohol, because when you know that, you can release it. When you make that unconscious aspect conscious and visible, it ceases to have power over you. This is really what initially started this whole thing for me, was having this type of subconscious work done for myself. And I've been offering it for several years now, but it's included in this package, in this What Do I Know 6-week online course transformation. And I'm so excited to be doing this, and there's space for 20 people. So if you feel called to be one of those 20 people and to come join us and to move through a bit of this fire in a community that totally gets it and is non-judgmental and compassionate, also fun and lively, then this would be a good space for you. So I'll put that link in the show notes. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram at La Vida Salud. And I hope you have a beautiful day, and I hope you take just that next little step into creating more visibility for yourself and knowing that you really, really are much more safe than probably that you used to be. And this belief of being unsafe and being who you are is old. It's an old belief that at one time probably really served you, probably kept you alive in multiple ways. But now it's more likely true that you no longer need that belief, and that I invite you to give yourself more permission to be fully seen for who you really are. And I hope you have an amazing day, and I look forward to being with you again soon.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.